Hello, and welcome to Today we're talking about a new Commander Legends card, Opposition Agent. A 3/2 black rogue with flash for 2 and a black that says you control your opponents while they search their libraries. And, while an opponent, aka you, is searching their library, they exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as if it were mana of any color to cast those cards. So, this is obviously very strong. It stops tutors, fetches, it completely kills anyone that plays Doomsday, and it is a soft lock with a mono black commander, Maralen of the Mornsong. Maralen says players can't draw cards, and at the beginning of each player's draw step that player loses 3 life, searches their library for a card and puts it into their hand, and then shuffles their library. Well, with the agent, on the beginning of each opponent's turn, you just tutor for a card in their deck and exile it. They can't draw any cards, so they need to have a way to kill the agent or Maralen with a card in their hands or something they already have on the board. If not, they're effectively locked out of the game, and are stuck with their current board state. And you get all the value out of their decks. Not that you'll need it anyways, because everyone will probably scoop if no one has an answer. But if you do want to play this card in a fair way, I think Opposition Agent would fit great into a green-black build. There are tons of cards that force opponents to search their libraries, like Scheming Symmetry, which makes 2 players search their library for a card, which means you can steal a card from 2 different players. Since the agent allows you to play land cards from exile, cards like Fertilid and Avatar Growth mean that you'll never miss a land drop. You can pay 1 and a green and remove a +1/+1 counter off of Fertilid to force a player to search their deck for basic land, while Avatar Growth forces all players to search for 2 basic lands, which means in a 4-player pod you'll exile 6 lands from your opponent's decks. Field of Ruin also becomes much better. You can pay 2, tap, and sack Field of Ruin to destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Then all players must tutor for a basic land and put it on the battlefield. Just joking. Instead, you get a free basic, one of your opponents loses a land, and then all opponents get a land exiled from their deck that you can play later. Pier's Whim has a similar effect. For each opponent you choose friend or foe. All your friends tutor for a land card, and your foes sack an artifact or enchantment. But with the agent, all your friends instead just give you their best land in their deck. How kind of them. But I would argue that cards that give your opponents the option to search their library are still quite powerful. Look at Weird Harvest. For 2 green and X, each player may search their deck for X creature cards and put them into their hand. But with the agent, your opponents probably won't search their deck. If they do, great, you just got to exile some creatures from their deck that you can play. And if they don't, well, you just got to tutor up whatever you want from your deck with 0 downside. And this is true for many cards. Collective Voyage, Veteran Explorer, and New Frontiers all become one-sided land tutors. Assassin's Trophy becomes a 2-cost removal spell that can hit all permanents. Witchclaw Talisman becomes a dead artifact for your opponents after you tutor with it, and Wave of Vitriol nukes your opponent's mana base by making them sack all their non-basic lands. The downside of all these cards suddenly disappears with Opposition Agent. There are more cards like this, but I'll put them all in a deck list linked in the description below. Now, if for whatever reason your opponent is playing Panglacial Worm, you can really mess with them. Panglacial Worm lets you cast it from your library if you're searching your library. So, while you control your opponent, you could cast Panglacial Worm if they have one in their deck. This means you get to decide how to tap their mana, and can tap all their lands to cast the worm, leaving them with excess mana they need to use before the phase ends. Finally, if you want to add a 3rd color to this deck, there are a few cards in the other colors that can allow an opponent to search their deck, like Arkham Dagson, Settle the Wreckage, and From the Ashes. Again, all these cards will be in the deck list below. So, what do you think of Opposition Agent? Love it? Hate it? Let me know down below. When you need another combo, come back here to Combo Breakdown.